Good evening, everyone. My name is Gasman, Stone Gasman, and here we are for the 50th anniversary commentary for Diamonds Are Forever, directed by Guy Hamilton and starring Sir Sean Connery, the late Sir Sean Connery, as James Bond 007 in what was his final performance. Although, to be honest, if you really count Never Say Never Again, I don't really like to count that one. But yeah, I mean, this was technically his last official performance as James Bond in the official Eon series. I hope everyone had a wonderful Christmas, and I want to thank you for joining me tonight. Yes, welcome, Cliff. Belated Merry Christmas. It's been snowing like crazy, so I watched a couple of old snowy westerns. Oh, wonderful. I've never seen any of those, to be perfectly honest, but yeah, that's wonderful. Wonderful. Now, let me say real quick before we start, and we'll be starting here in about 2 minutes. I am currently paused at the MGM logo. Diamonds Are Forever is a very in the Bond pantheon for me because, well, it was the very first Bond film I ever saw. The first two Bond films I saw were Diamonds Are Forever and Moonraker, which tend to be considered two of the worst Bond films, although I consider them more guilty pleasures. Let's put it that way. Diamonds Are Forever, I have a soft spot for it. I understand there's a lot of complaints about this film from Bond fanatics. I completely understand why. We will talk about that as the movie goes on. But for me, this movie, my parents had recorded it off the television in the early 1980s. I think it was an ABC Sunday night movie type thing. And that's how I discovered it. And of course, I did not understand any of the double entendres. But, look, as any other kid would tell you, I found James Bond a pretty cool cat. And the fact that he shot bad guys and he got with women and everything. So am I a hardcore Bond fan though? No, I am not a hardcore Bond fan. As Joe Bob Tarheel said a while ago that he has Bond 50 set, I wouldn't mind owning the Bond 50 set, but the truth of the matter is there are some Bond films I don't really want to ever see again. Specifically, some of the Pierce Brosnan ones and a couple of the Roger Moore ones. And what is going to be slightly controversial is that the truth is I'm not a fan of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, even though it's considered by many Bond fans as the best one. Um, I wish I had read the book of Majesty's Secret Service because I am sure that the book as well as the movie. I mean, Bond fans love that movie, and it's part of the reason why Diamonds Are Forever doesn't have a very high reputation. It's because of the fact that people just did not like this as a follow up to Diamonds Are for Majesty's Secret Service. But I've always had a soft spot for this movie. I mean, here again, I mean, I think this is along with Moonraker, I think these are perfect Bond films to introduce to kids. I mean, sure. I mean, you probably should start with something like Goldfinger or Doctor No, even. But look, I mean, Diamonds Are Forever made me a moderately big James Bond fan. I mean, there's probably maybe 5 or 6 in the entire canon that I don't really want to ever see again. And we'll talk about the franchise in general as the movie goes on. But for right now, I want to mention that this will probably be my last audio commentary for the year. Next year, for the first 3 months of 2022, I wanted to announce real quick before we start the movie. But in the first 3 months of 2022, I plan on doing J.W. Coop, a movie directed and starring Cliff Robertson as a guy who was just released from prison for passing bad checks, and he tries to get back onto the rodeo circuit. Cisco Pike, directed by Bill Norton, starring Gene Hackman, Karen Black, and Chris Christopherson. Bob Fosse's Cabaret, the classic musical starring Liza Minnelli and Joel Grey. Freddie Francis's Tales from the Crypt. Francis Ford Coppola's The Godfather. That will be in March. I'm going to have to read the book before doing that one, obviously. But yes, I will be doing The Godfather. George Roy Hill's Slaughterhouse-Five, and finally John Waters' Pink Flamingos. And by the way, Pink Flamingos, despite its trashy reputation, has just been chosen as one of the 25 films of 2021 to be preserved in the Library of Congress. Apparently, Pink Flamingos is now preserved forever in the Library of Congress. So that's some news right there. But I got the box set for less than $30. Oh well, I mean, that's very reasonable, I must admit. Roger Moore is my favorite Bond. That's cool. That's awesome. Yeah, like I said, Roger Moore, he would take over the role of Bond right after Diamonds Are Forever. And Sean Connery would, of course, retire from the role essentially for many years until he was conned back in for Never Say Never Again, which here again is not an official Bond entry. And that's another one of those Bond films I never really want to see again. But and we'll talk about that and the other Bond films. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I am paused at the Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer logo. And on the count of 3, we will go ahead and get started here. So 3, 2, 1, and play. And yes, I had to get rid of the volume. But yes, and this is Diamonds Are Forever. This is, okay, here we have the United Artists logo. United Artists, of course, was responsible for distributing the Bond films in the 60s and the 70s and into the 80s. And here's the famous gun barrel sequence that's been utilized. As you can see, James Bond here is wearing a hat. And I think for many films after this is that they had him not wear a hat. I mean, I could be wrong about that. But, here, I'm not a hardcore Bond fan. So anything that you would like to correct me on, please let me know. But like I said, I've seen Diamonds Are Forever many, many times. Ever since I was 8, 9 years old, when I saw it on that television version that my parents recorded. Now, in this opening sequence, as you can see, we don't see Bond, but we know it's him. We can tell by his voice. That's Sean Connery. And he's basically on a mission of even though it's not explicitly stated, he's on a mission of revenge for the killing of his wife in the previous movie. Although, strangely enough, Diamonds Are Forever largely ignores On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And before I continue with that, with the connections between both films, here we have Sean Connery as James Bond. I don't know why they felt the need to speed up his voice, because in the trailer, it's actually his own dialogue. And here we actually have some nudity. We don't get a lot of nudity in Bond films, but we actually do see her breasts. And this is a little Connery cruelness, as he's known for, like in Goldfinger, slapping women on the ass. And of course, he's going to slap Jill St. John here later in the movie. But here's the villain of the piece. This is Charles Gray as Blofeld. Originally, the villain was supposed to be the brother of Goldfinger. And as a matter of fact, this movie in many ways is very, very reminiscent of Goldfinger, almost to the point where they depend on Goldfinger's story and plot and certain bits and pieces here and there, which harken back to Goldfinger. But so Sean Connery as James Bond, here he is he's in this place where apparently Blofeld has been doing clones of himself. Now, as you can see, this mud pool, whatever the hell this is, but apparently this is mashed potatoes. It doesn't really look like mashed potatoes, but apparently that's what it is. And interestingly enough, when what the producers didn't realize is that after a few days under the hot lights, that the mashed potatoes emitted this horrible, horrible stench. And they had no idea. But this is pretty icky. Yeah, I like the fact that they just happen to have a water gun there for this specific purpose. Ugh. I remember as a kid, I was wondering, like, what is that stuff? I mean, like, God. I mean, but no, apparently Blofeld uses this crap to basically do clones of himself. And Charles Gray, he was previously in the Bond film "You Only Live Twice," and but he's most famous for being the criminologist in the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which is consequently my favorite Charles Gray role. And he got a lot of criticism for this role, a lot of flack. He is not quite up to Kojak or Dr. Loomis from the other films who played Blofeld. You know what? It's even hard to even say he's better than Christoph Waltz. People, he is the worst Blofeld because people complain about, well, he's too British. And of course, this is a very campy performance largely in a, this is the 70s, and in the 70s Bond films, the camp factor was raised up to 11, which I'll explain here in a minute. But Sean Connery, just pushes Blofeld into some other boiling muck. I mean, that may be mashed potatoes. I don't know for sure. It looks more like hot pudding or something. And here is the title sequence. So the title song sequence sung by Shirley Bassey, who had done the title song for Goldfinger. And she would later come back for Moonraker for the title song for that. And I really like this title song. I mean, here again, I mean, this movie has stuck with me ever since I was a child. And I think the song is great. Although, to be perfectly honest, I mean, I read this very recently. Apparently, Harry Saltzman, Cubby Broccoli's producing partner, hated this song. And the idea is that he hated it because he thought it was too suggestive. That that Shirley Bassey, when she was singing, that she was referring to a man's penis with these lyrics. Now, I'm not so sure I buy that necessarily, but listen to the lyrics or read the lyrics, and you can come up with your own interpretation. But Harry Saltzman apparently hated the song just because he thought that it was referencing a man's penis. But hey, I mean, it goes along with the other double entendres in this movie too. I mean, and of course, in these title sequences are very famous for the nude silhouettes of women and everything. Filmed in Panavision and color by Technicolor. Main title design by Maurice Binder. Yes, absolutely. And this movie has a lot of Bond tropes and people that have come over from the other previous films. Like we have Ken Adam doing the sets again, the great Ken Adam sets. He worked on many Bond films all the way up until Moonraker. Ted Moore was the director of photography. Like I said, I really do dig this title sequence. I mean, it's very 70s, but look, I mean, the great John Barry did the music. Don Black wrote the lyrics. So if you really want to call anyone out for writing this song, as Harry Saltzman did, I mean, you would have to refer to Don Black. But interestingly enough, when I think of Don Black, I don't think of this movie, but I think of a 1979 movie called The Bitch, starring Joan Collins, which I'll look forward to doing a commentary on that. But screenplay by Richard Maybaum and Tom Mankiewicz. Now, Tom Mankiewicz was an American writer who was brought on board to basically Americanize the script. What happened is that on Her Majesty's Secret Service, while it was a hit in many countries, it wasn't a hit in the United States. And so the producers felt that, well, we really have to get the American audience back for this movie. So that's why they chose Diamonds Are Forever, because of its Las Vegas setting. Although, weirdly enough, Las Vegas is never identified by name in this movie. And of course, the James Bond film after this was Live and Let Die, which was set in New Orleans, mostly because of the blaxploitation element, which made that movie a little unique. And here's um, Bernard Lee, the original M, uh, giving him instructions on diamonds that are going on. Hold on a minute. Let me just give me 1 second here. Mm. So the idea behind Diamonds Are Forever is that um, okay, so apparently there's been some diamond smugglers that have been killed, and M suspects that South African diamonds are being stockpiled to depress prices by dumping, and so he orders Bond to uncover the smuggling ring. And disguised as professional smuggler and assassin Peter Franks, he goes about to go after Blofeld and all this diamond smuggling. Now we don't know what Blofeld is smuggling these diamonds for. We'll find out later. But as they explain here, 80% of the world's diamonds comes from South Africa. Now, oddly enough, when I saw this movie again recently, and I hadn't seen this movie in about 10 years or so, this opening sequence actually, this sequence right here actually reminds me of the opening sequence in Uncut Gems, the Adam Sandler crime movie that came out a couple years ago, written and directed by the Safdie brothers. If you haven't seen that, it's a really a great thriller. It just got a Criterion release actually, and it's so I mean, there's a lot of comedy in this movie. There is a camp factor, and that's mostly due to Tom Mankiewicz, which is kind of ironic because the thing is that Tom Mankiewicz is mostly well known as the creative consultant of Superman 1 and 2. Richard Donner, the late Richard Donner, had hired Mankiewicz to do rewrites on the script for that, and they eliminated much of the camp. But in the James Bond movies, which he worked on all throughout the 70s, you know, the camp factor is slowly elevated all the way up until Moonraker. Now, these are a pair of assassins known as Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd. Um, and Mr. Wint is played by Bruce Glover, and Mr. Kidd is played by Putter Smith. Putter Smith was a jazz musician, and Bruce Glover, interestingly enough, he was surprised he got this part because they wanted like a Sidney Greenstreet type. But what a lot of people don't know is that he's actually the father of Crispin Glover. Yeah, I mean, as you look at his face, you can kind of see the resemblance there. Um, but this scene right here, which is kind of funny for the wrong reasons, they pick up a scorpion. Like they happen to find a scorpion right before they're doing this exchange. And originally, Bruce Glover was supposed to put the scorpion in the guy's mouth, but as you can see, he puts it in his back, and he makes that sound as he falls over. Um, Apparently, the producers apparently thought that the scorpion in the mouth was a bit too much, a bit too shocking, and so they decided to cut it, and then just had him put the scorpion in his in the back of his shirt. um, I think I would prefer the mouth one because he doesn't have a such a goofy noise as he falls to the ground there. But yeah, Bruce Glover here is actually the father of Crispin Glover, and amazingly enough, there's actually a shot later in the movie in Vegas of the unfinished hotel that would later serve as Biff Tannen's hotel, the Paradise Hotel in Back to the Future Part Two, which of course Crispin Glover was not in due to poor negotiations and other factors, which I won't go into. But as you can see, Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd are very gay. Now, look, I'm going to defend these characters, okay? Because, you know, a lot of people, you know, get down on this movie because of that factor. But you know what? We've had so many James Bond movies with muscle bound henchmen that you know that almost always seem to be indestructible. These are just two gay assassins, and I think that's actually very original, and they got some very funny moments in this movie. I really like them as a team, actually. And so we start everything off in well, we see bits and pieces of South Africa, but eventually we're going to go to Amsterdam. And so, I mean, the look of Putter Smith, I mean, he just makes me laugh. I mean, Putter Smith actually said on the documentary on the Diamonds Are Forever documentary that apparently this is him. You know, this is not really a performance, but this is really, he's basically playing himself. But I really like Sean Connery as James Bond. Is he my favorite Bond? Honestly, no. My personal favorite Bond would happen to be Timothy Dalton, who, of course, what I love to mention all the time is that Timothy Dalton actually read every single James Bond novel in preparation. And in fact, the producers actually approached him several times. In fact, from what I understand, he was approached in 1969 for On Her Majesty's Secret Service, but Timothy Dalton felt he was just too young for the role. I mean, he turned down the role of James Bond 4 times. That's, I mean, to turn down the most famous movie role in the world 4 times. I mean, that's incredible. But yeah, Timothy Dalton happens to be my favorite, but that doesn't distinguish the fact that I love the first 4 James Bond movies with Sean Connery. Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, and Thunderball. In fact, I have a huge love of Thunderball. And this, of course, is Lois Maxwell as Money Penny. And apparently she wore a hat in this scene because she had just dyed her hair. And this is also one of the rare, you know what? This may be the only James Bond film from this era where she doesn't appear in her usual office. But yeah, but she just gave the tickets to Bond to travel to Amsterdam on this hovercraft. I don't know if I've ever been on a hovercraft, to be honest. I've never even been to Amsterdam, to be perfectly honest. Although that'd be something I'd like to visit on my wish list sometime. Although I've been to many European countries. But yeah, this is all on location in Amsterdam. Though unfortunately, James Bond never goes to the red light district in this movie. The paintings of our famous Rembrandt. Ah, okay. Now there's the woman that was given the package earlier by Mr. Winton, Mr. Kidd. Um, she got killed, and Mrs. Whistler did say that she wanted us to take some pictures of the canals for the children. Oh, these guys are. I mean, I just love their banter. I mean, I think they're very funny. And luckily, I mean, for 1971, it was actually a little bold, I think, to include these gay assassins. And luckily, there's hardly any like offensive slurs or anything of that nature. I mean, there are a couple little bits later I'll point out that borderline on insulting, but I'll go to that later. But for right now, we're about to meet the primary Bond girl of the movie, played by Jill St. John. And Jill St. John was a pinup sensation in the early 60s. She was around the Rat Pack a lot. So she probably has a lot of Vegas experience. And as you can see, that she had a blonde wig there because apparently in the book, she apparently Tiffany Case was blonde. And so that was their little nod to the character in the book. According to screenwriter Tom Mankiewicz, about 35 to 40% of the book is in this movie. And now, of course, we meet Jill St. John with a brunette wig. And weren't you a blonde when I came in? Exactly. Now, of course, this is one of those lines that I just had no idea what Bond meant as a kid. Which when she asks him which hair color do you prefer, and he says, "Well, provided the collars and the cuffs match." You know, I had no clue, but of course, my dad would be snickering while I was watching this. Like, okay, what? I don't get it. What does that mean? Yeah, apparently they're referring to hair upstairs and downstairs uh, for anybody that if it goes over their head, that's exactly what it means. But now, see this. I mean, as a kid, I was always fascinated by these little details of, oh, he put his fingerprint on the glass. Like, oh no, she's going to be able to identify him now. But as we see right after this, Q had very cleverly put fake fingerprints on his thumbs and his fingers to prevent this actual to prevent his identity from being compromised. But he's posing as a guy named Peter Franks, who's going to help Tiffany Case smuggle these diamonds. And in fact, from what I never read the book, but from what I understand is that Bond never has no interaction with Peter Franks in the book at all. And in fact, Peter Franks doesn't even die in the book, because in this movie, there's a great fight scene on an elevator between Peter Franks and James Bond, which is actually one of the best scenes in the movie. Yeah, I mean, I love little details like this where Bond is realizes like, wait a minute, she should have sprayed something on there that wouldn't emit a smell, probably. But yeah, she is in fact a redhead. Jill St. John is a redhead in real life. Now, I got to confess this. I always had a soft spot for redheads. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, but I do prefer redheads. And in fact, in Thunderball, one of the reasons why I love Thunderball so much is because I'm a huge fan of Fellini Volpe. I probably screwed that name up. I'm sorry, but the Blofeld, the henchwoman in that movie is very much an Italian redhead. Is it Felina Volpe? God, I forget. But let's see. Charles Gray was fun and The Devil Rides Out. I think Goldfinger peaked at number 8 on Billboard's Hot 100 in 64 and 65. Okay. Connery drove a Ford Mustang and Diamonds, and I believe the only American muscle car in 007. That is true. In fact, the Ford Motor Company supplied many of the cars, and they insisted that Bond drive that Mustang, which we will, of course, see later. Also played Sherlock Holmes' brother Mycroft in the Sherlock Holmes with Jeremy Brett in the 80s. Oh my God. I love that Tom Jones theme. Oh, I love it. And you're absolutely right. He does crush it. Um, so here is Peter Franks, who actually taught Sean Connery judo, according to the accompanying documentary on the Bond 50 set. Some cute little banter between the two of them here. Oh, yes, I speak English, sure. Who is your flaw? Now, I love this fight scene, and as you can see, as it triggers, he's looking at his watch, and he's actually going to break the glass as he puts his arm back to punch Peter Franks. And I'm willing to bet a lot of that glass is fake sugar, because they tend to use fake sugar as a substitute for glass in movies, like they used to like they use like they use balsa wood when characters have to go through wood for some reason. But this is a pretty cool fight scene. I mean, it's very intense. It may not be up there with the fight scene in From Russia with Love with Robert Shaw, which is arguably the best one in the whole series, but this one is pretty damn good. And even those who don't care for Diamonds Are Forever cite this as being one of the best fight scenes. And I like seeing all the behind the scenes shots in the documentary of Guy Hamilton, the director, shooting all this. But I was going to mention also real quick that apparently this movie has a lot of Superman references and even a couple of Batman references. Um, Tom Mankiewicz, of course, later rewrote the script for Superman 1 and 2, but Guy Hamilton was originally supposed to direct the Superman movie. In fact, he had declined The Spy Who Loved Me to go and direct Superman for the Salkinds. But what happened was is that they were going to shoot in Italy, and apparently Guy Hamilton has but apparently because of Last Tango in Paris, they weren't able to shoot in Italy. Brando was still under investigation for that, so they had to go back to England. But by that time, Guy Hamilton had to be replaced because he had some kind of tax exile where he couldn't be in England for more than 30 days or something like that. But there's a Superman reference later in the movie, and we'll point out a couple others as we go here. But Sean Connery was a very last second casting for this because what happened was is that Majesties didn't do as well as it was supposed to, and uh, the actor who played Bond in that movie, George Lazenby, decided not to do another one. So they decided to look at a few American actors to take over the role. They had actually considered Burt Reynolds, and they also considered Adam West, of all people, which would have been interesting because Jill St. John was in the very first two episodes of the Batman television series from the 1960s. In fact, those first two series got Emmy nominations for Frank Gorshin as the Riddler. I mean, a lot of people dismiss Batman as the show as very much camp, which it really was, and it was a very affectionate spoof of the Batman comics. But in fact, those first two episodes are actually quasi serious. I mean, the cliffhanger for those first two Batman episodes was Riddler about to operate on Robin's brain. That's pretty dark, okay? But it would have been interesting if Adam West had played this role. But in fact, West and Reynolds both turned the role down. And I think in West's case, it was because that he cited the fact, well, look, this is a British character. It needs to be played by a British actor. Now, they had actually signed John Gavin, most famous for playing the role of Loomis in Psycho. Um, yes, yeah, I mentioned Loomis earlier because Donald Pleasance played Dr. Loomis in Halloween, and now we have this another connection where John Gavin was supposed to originally play Bond because he played Loomis in Psycho. This is a very funny bit, I think. Miss Case is very attractive for a woman, and of course, Bruce Glover gets all jealous. I love it. I love it actually. Now, here we are. We've arrived in Las Vegas, but here again, we don't really identify Vegas by name in this movie. And here is Felix Leiter, or Felix Leiter, yeah, in disguise here. And this is a little in joke that I would never have guessed this because I'm not a doctor, but he's wondering where the Felix Leiter is wondering where the diamonds are because he knows they're in the body of Peter Franks somewhere. And while he's looking, he says, "Okay, I know the diamonds are in the body, but I have no idea where." And James Bond, he actually says alimentary, Dr. Leiter, which is essentially referring to the digestive system. And at a screening, Albert R. Broccoli, there was only two people in the front that laughed at that joke because they were doctors. And Broccoli dismissed them like, they're doctors. Of course they understood the damn joke. But unless you're a doctor, that joke will go way over your head. Now, there's a number of familiar faces that pop up throughout this movie, but I gotta confess, as I was scrutinizing the movie again just before this commentary, the thing is that for this Slumber Incorporated funeral home, apparently Udo Kier is supposed to appear somewhere in the not Udo Kier, but Sid Haig is in this movie. Uh, I honestly don't know which one he is, but because I thought I knew his face enough where I could identify him, but apparently Sid Haig is somewhere in the Slumber Incorporated sequence. I honestly can't identify him at the moment. Maybe you guys can. That would be awesome, but I'm not exactly sure where he is. The Liberace Batman episode was great. Yeah. Where Liberace had a dual role as I think one of his alter egos was called Fingers, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed revisiting the Batman series when it came out on physical media finally, when we thought it was never ever going to get on physical media ever again. Now, funnily enough, I mean, maybe I don't know. Tom Mankiewicz, when he rewrote this script, I mean, the interesting thing is that a lot of people feel like this is not Ian Fleming. That they kind of go away into this campy direction, which would, of course, later go on in the Roger Moore movies. Oddly enough, Leonard Maltin, when he reviewed this for his book, he gave it a very high rating. He gave it a 3.5 stars out of 4, but said that this movie resembles Republic serials more than Ian Fleming, which I can understand what he means by that, because later on we're going to get different cliffhangers and different things that could easily come out of a Batman episode. To be perfectly honest. But the times were changing in the 70s, because the 60s spy craze had pretty much died at this point. And could that be Sid Haig? I thought I knew what Sid Haig looked like. Maybe I don't, but but he is given credit, so he's somewhere in this movie. He might have been cut out, but who knows? Here again, I mean, I've had to double check certain things, and that there's certain people that I was sure were definitively in this movie, but apparently they weren't, and I'll point that out when we get to them. But yeah, so I mean, he's now got the diamonds and everything after they cremated Mr. Franks. Um, and here's Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd waiting around for Bond. Of course, Bond has no idea who these guys are. There was apparently a little dialogue exchange between the two of them where they talk about Mr. Kidd's mother, which was all cut out. Now, this upcoming sequence freaked me the hell out when I was a kid, where Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd, they decide to put him in the coffin and actually push the button to cremate Bond. And this whole sequence was shot on the very last day of shooting. This movie was shot between April and August of 1971. And in fact, this bit right here was the very last shot of the movie, filmed on Friday the 13th in August of 1971. Very appropriate because, of course, this was basically Bond's very last day as, excuse me, Connery's very last day as Bond. And of course, we see him about to be cremated. So according to him, his turn as James Bond is officially dead at this point. But yeah, this is a pretty freaky sequence. I mean, I can't imagine what kind of a nightmare this would be if you were cremated alive and while conscious. I mean, I can't imagine the terror that somebody would feel about this. weird way, this kind of reminds me of that great Ryan Reynolds movie called Buried, which is just it's 90 minutes of Ryan Reynolds in a coffin buried underneath the ground, trying to figure out how to get the hell out of there. And it's very, very scary. But I mean, there's a sequence later in this movie that I gotta call out as being ridiculous. I can only take one of these death-defying situations. Um, I can only take one in a movie like this, because when you start doing it two or three times, it gets way too ridiculous. I like this scene. I'm glad this scene is in the movie, but I'll point out the scene later where I felt like, I mean, basically, Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd had the perfect opportunity to kill Bond again, and they didn't do it. Here again, this almost plays like a Batman show, like the Batman show in terms of the cliffhangers and Bond being close to death and everything. Now, of course, pictured on the left there is Sammy Davis Jr. Sammy Davis Jr. originally had a cameo in this movie, but it was cut. And apparently, the reason why they cut it was because he basically mocks James Bond for wearing a white tuxedo. Now, the producers didn't want a character mocking James Bond, so they cut him out for that reason. Now, and in the painting there, that is supposed to be Jimmy Dean, the Sausage King. Oh, thank you, Cliff. Thank you so much. See, it was killing me trying to figure out where he was. He wears a black suit, black fedora, and has long black sideburns in this movie, and he shows up in the hotel room with the other thugs. Thank you so much. Yes, and something else I want to put to rest right now. I thought this was Valerie Perrine, but apparently that is not Valerie Perrine on the left. That is not her, and she officially confirmed it for me on Twitter. But apparently, from what I understand, is that Elvira, Cassandra Peterson, is supposed to be in this movie too. I don't buy that as being Elvira on the right there. I mean, there's a scene earlier where, because I mean, apparently, according to Wikipedia, Elvira is supposed to appear as a showgirl. But then again, I saw another source that says that she appears as just a dancer. Now, there is a scene right before this where we see 5 dancers on the stage. Or no, right there. There it is right there. Is Elvira one of them? I don't know. It's too much of a long shot. But I can say definitively that was not Valerie Perrine, even though many believe that Valerie Perrine made her uncredited film debut in this movie. As a matter of fact, she makes her debut in Slaughterhouse-5, which I'll be covering in a couple months here. That's most annoying. Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd kill me. I can't help it. I mean, they're so different as henchmen in this type of Bond thriller. They're just totally different than all the. Who knows? Elvira might be on that stage too. I don't know. Like I said, I didn't find any definitive proof, but here we have Lana Wood, who is Natalie Wood's younger sister. And she was discovered by the producers in a copy of Playboy magazine. Now, apparently, and one thing I wanted to talk about while Lana Wood is on screen, because she's not on screen for very long, is ever since this movie came out, she has had a lifelong feud with the primary Bond girl, Jill St. John. And part of the reason for that is because Connery, who was going through a divorce at the time, was evidently having an affair with both Lana Wood, playing Plenty O'Toole, and Jill St. John at the exact same time. But I think that his relationship with Lana Wood ended first, and he actually got with Jill St. John for much of the rest of the movie. But there's an interesting connection here in Of course, Lana Wood is the younger sister of Natalie Wood, who, of course, tragically died in 1981. People don't know if, and there's a lot of mysterious circumstances surrounding her death. Lana Wood is absolutely convinced that she was murdered by Robert Wagner, her husband. And in fact, she published a book only 6 weeks ago called Dark Water, My Investigation into Natalie Wood's murder. And she's absolutely convinced that Natalie Wood was murdered by Robert Wagner. Now, I don't want to go, too deep into the subject. I think that if I was going to do a commentary for Brainstorm, that would be more appropriate. But the story, real quick, is that Robert Wagner and Natalie Wood were on a boat in 1981, and she somehow got into the water. And there was reports of arguments and alcohol. They were on board the boat with Christopher Walken, who later played a Bond villain in A View to a Kill, by the way. And but in the last 10 years, apparently there's been a lot more attention drawn to Natalie Wood's death, because in 2011 the case was reopened, and in 2018 Robert Wagner became a person of interest. And the thing is that Jill St. John, 3 months after Natalie Wood died, started having an affair with Robert Wagner, and then they married in 1990. And many years later, when there was a photo shoot of all the Bond women, they wanted to get a shot of both Lana Wood and Jill St. John, but Jill St. John absolutely categorically refused to have any photo shoots with Lana Wood, and reportedly Lana Wood broke down in tears. Okay, so that's Sid Haig. Okay. Maybe it was the hat, maybe it was the sideburns, I don't know. But here's Lana Wood being thrown out of the hotel and into a swimming pool, which and her character is actually found dead in Jill St. John's swimming pool in a couple of scenes after this. So a little chilling, a little prophetic, maybe. Here again, I don't, we may never know what happened to Natalie Wood really, and of course, it's one of the great tragedies in Hollywood history. Um, but yeah, Jill St. John and Lana Wood have had nothing but a feud and a rivalry ever since they made this movie. Now, there is a deleted scene where Lana Wood actually goes back up to the hotel room to, get back with Bond after she was thrown out of the window into the swimming pool. But she already notices Jill St. John and Sean Connery in bed, ironically enough. And so what she does is that she goes into Tiffany Case's purse and gets the address to her home. In the next sequence, we just see her dead in the pool without much of an explanation. But once you realize there's a deleted scene where she actually did go back into the hotel room and got the address, it actually perfectly explains how she ended up dead in the swimming pool later. But Jill St. John, regrettably, apparently, in terms of the Robert Wagner investigation, she's been nothing but a total bitch. She slammed the door several times in front of investigators, and Robert Wagner refuses to discuss it. But you know what? The thing is, his health is failing at this moment, so it's not like. I mean, we'll probably never really know what happened to Natalie Wood, and how guilty Robert Wagner is. We may never know. But at the same time, I mean, that's a weird connection that this movie has to Natalie Wood's death. Very, very weird and very, very strange. Okay, now one of the big complaints about Connery's performance here as James Bond is that he was out of shape. And I'd like to quote one of my favorite Bond fans, Dutch Bond fan, who did reviews for all the movies on YouTube. He cited this scene as basically Connery looking like a dirty old man with an ashtray on his chest. and it lacks like those scenes from the early Bond movies from the '60s where there was a class and sensuality about them. That's a perfectly reasonable complaint. Now, to be fair to Connery, however, from what I understand, he got no sleep at all during this production. And you got to understand this was 4 years after his last Bond performance in You Only Live Twice. He was out of shape, but he was playing golf apparently every day. He was in the casino. One story is that, I mean, he was delayed to the set because he had to collect his casino wins and everything. So, I mean, Sean Connery gets a lot of flack for this particular movie, but I still think at the very least he has his moments. I mean, he does shine in several scenes. I mean, sure, he could have gotten a little bit more in shape for this movie. I mean, well, it's funny because what's ironic is that in Never Say Never Again, which came out 12 years after this, he was cited as being more in shape and more enthusiastic about playing Bond again. Here, he seems rather tired. He seems disinterested, like right here. But here's the thing. I think that's basically because he was just tired most of the time. He was playing golf, he was gambling, he was having affairs with both of the Bond women. So I don't blame him for being tired much of the time. He was just in Vegas having fun, really. But yeah, this is the Circus Casino, and one word that's been brought up a lot in describing Diamonds Are Forever is that it's very, very tacky. Now, I mean, like these scenes are very tacky of like them trying to get the diamonds and everything, but and then there's this gorilla show later, which is really, really weird. Yeah, thank you, Cliff. Exactly what I was saying. He was banging two chicks at the same time. Of course, he was tired. Of course, he was. Why don't you play the water balloons? Okay. I mean, this stuff right here. I mean, as a kid, I like this stuff. I found this stuff very enjoyable. But of course, if you're a serious Bond fan, I can understand, especially if you would watch the movies from the very beginning all the way to the very end. I can understand why fans of On Her Majesty's Secret Service would be particularly disappointed with this movie. Originally, this was supposed to be a revenge story. It was supposed to be Sean Connery just going after Blofeld and getting him once and for all for killing his wife in the previous movie. And just real quick, sadly, we lost Diana Rigg last December. She passed away, and the very last movie that she did was Edgar Wright's Last Night in Soho, which I highly encourage everybody to see. I think it's the best movie of 2021, hands down. I saw it twice in the theater. Mm. But yeah, she's gonna Tiffany Case is gonna be playing these essentially these carnival juvenile games just to get the diamonds, which are apparently now hidden in this stuffed dog that she's about to get. I mean, Jill St. John is a very gorgeous woman, but I gotta confess, I don't think that her performance here is anything to really scream about. And her character of unfortunately becomes a real ditz later. But you want irony on top of irony. Jill St. John, she does some dumb things in this movie. Her character comes off as really, really dumb, particularly in the second half. But evidently, she's supposed to have an IQ of 162. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, but then again, I question like, well, I mean, she could have probably suggested that they make her character not as dumb. I mean, like Holly Goodnight in The Man with the Golden Gun or something like that. But in fact, I forgot to mention the guy that the assassin with Sid Haig in the hotel room when he says, "I didn't know there was a pool down there." That actor was evidently in the opening sequence of The Man with the Golden Gun. when he went to Scaramanga's island to and went through his little fun house where he had to basically kill him. But then but then you got this weird stuff in Diamonds Are Forever, like this gorilla show. I mean, here again, as a kid, I didn't mind all this stuff. As an adult, this is very silly. And basically all we need to do is get Tiffany Case out the door and have Bond and his two accomplices lose her. I mean, yeah, this is weird stuff. This is stuff that would come out of Universal monster movies or something like that. I mean, it's really weird that something like this would be in a James Bond movie. But then again, I mean, the Bond series had its fair share of silly and campy elements, and this is no different, But the music, I do admittedly find a little creepy. I don't know. This seems like something I would see out of the Electric Company or some kids show that was playing at the time. Were they that desperate to get American audiences back that they were doing stuff like this? I don't know. I really don't. And there she goes. Oh, we still have Hertz Rent-A-Car, that's for sure. I think we see an International House of Pancakes here somewhere. Or maybe it's in another scene. Yeah, we lost her. Okay, now here's the swimming pool scene I was talking about before. This doesn't look like Lana Wood in the pool, though. That might be a stunt double. Oh, welcome, Maurice. Good to have you on board here. And let me just do a timestamp real quick. I'm at 50 minutes and 40 seconds. So if you want to jump to the movie, we are at the 51-minute mark, pretty much here in 10 seconds. So yeah, just jump to 51 minutes. But so yeah, this is supposed to be Lana Wood. Here again, slightly prophetic. I don't know. Take what you want out of this, but it is really, really weird and strange. This movie has a lot of connections to Natalie Wood's death. It's just really, really strange. Now, here we have a good old-fashioned face slap from Connery, which, of course, would never, ever appear in a James Bond film today. It just, this is something that could only get away with in the 60s or 70s, to have the male lead just slap the female lead around like that. It would never, ever happen today. So where's the stuff? Yeah, I know. Needless to say, this is all very, very 70s. And that's part of the reason why I find these movies fascinating, is just to see uh, what America looked like in the early 1970s. That's part of the reason why I find some of these movies so fascinating, is and there you go. There's Tiffany in the Ford Mustang, which the Ford Motor Company insisted that Bond drive in the car chase later. So no Aston Martin, no DB. Yeah, but we're going to do the Ford Mustang now. Here again, very Americanized. Very, very Americanized. Now, Willard White is supposed to be based on Howard Hughes. In fact, Albert R. Broccoli said that he actually thought of Howard Hughes in a dream that he had. And evidently, Jimmy Dean, who plays Willard White, was an employee of Howard Hughes at the time. He actually did shows at one of the hotels that Howard Hughes ran in the early 1970s. And the whole thing of what Tiffany's saying right here, that that he's in this penthouse and nobody's seen him and everything. That's all inspired by Howard Hughes. Um, uh, this is a pretty amusing sequence. Although, I mean, to tell you the truth, it's riddled with flaws. I mean, the thing is that Sean Connery is Bond. He jumps in the back of this car that the bad guy is driving, but there's a car right behind it that could have easily seen him get into the back of this van, and he doesn't say a word about it. See, there he is right there. Although maybe he was just distracted by Tiffany Case's beauty. I mean, who knows? I mean, see right here, like he didn't notice him going in the back of the van, really? Forget it, Curly. You had your chance and you blew it. Yeah, I mean, literally right there. There's no excuse. He should have seen him go in the back of that van. Oh, man. Now, I know that somewhere, maybe it's later, but I know that there is a sign that is advertising Wayne Newton. And of course, Wayne Newton would later appear in License to Kill as I forget his character's name in that movie, but he's actually really funny. Um, and another interesting connection this movie has to License to Kill is that the famous car stunt that they bungled in the Las Vegas car chase sequence, where they had the car go on its side. Well, in License to Kill, they have an entire tanker truck go on its side. So there's another weird connection here. I mean, anybody that's seen the Bond films many, many times, you can start noticing all these connections. You know, familiar faces, similar lines, similar quotes, similar actions. I mean, it's part of the reason why this series has endured. I mean, there's a lot of serious, hardcore fans of this series, and I completely understand why. And just to let everybody know, we are at 56 minutes. We are at the 56-minute mark, so we're almost halfway through here. Funnily enough, I mean, like the earlier scene with Peter Franks when they're getting into Tiffany Case's apartment, he always, he pretends he uses a fake ID by just taking out, any card and just putting it in the slot right after the previous guy already opened the door and got clearance. Like here, right here, the green light comes on. Connery pretends that he has a badge himself to get in, and the doors finally open, and then they go on in. I love this line right here too. It's like, by the way, where's your radiation shield? Oh yeah, I've been waiting a couple days for you guys to deliver them. Oh, I'm sorry. You should have given us a phone call. I mean, like, I mean, this is Tom Mankiewicz all the way. I mean, wrote all these rather silly lines of dialogue. Ugh. So while this scene is playing out, let me just talk about the Bond series in general because, like I said, this was the very first Bond film I ever saw, and then I saw Moonraker, and then slowly but surely, because of like marathons that would go on like I don't know, Spike TV or was it TBS or whatever. I forget the channel that used to have these Bond marathons every now and then, where I would actually sit and watch with my father all the Bond films, including Never Say Never Again. The only Bond film I have not seen is actually the very last one, which is No Time to Die. I was very, very, very torn on whether I wanted to see No Time to Die in the theater. Part of it is because of COVID, and also because of the fact I heard it's very, very long, and some other reasons. But I love Daniel Craig, and I love him in that role. I thought that he was a perfect choice, considering after anybody that's seen the movie Layer Cake could attest that that is essentially a long audition tape for James Bond, and they really, I think, picked the perfect actor for that. Now, as of right now, I don't think that they've chosen a new Bond yet, and I'm not sure if it's supposed to be the lady that they cast in the movie as well, but yeah. So the Bond series is kind of in limbo right now. We don't know who's going to play Bond next at this moment, but they'll probably make an announcement sometime next year. Okay, this entire sequence, I'm sure that some people find rather baffling. Well, the rationale behind all this is that this is a nod to the conspiracy theory that the moon landing in 1969 was faked. And it's kind of funny with this and Moonraker. Here again, a little connection there. But and this moon buggy here, which is of course a very original, if rather ridiculous, vehicle for Bond to do his escape in. Now, this moon buggy apparently couldn't go through the desert very, very well. And just a few years ago, it was actually found in a farmer's field. It had been abandoned and had been sitting in a farmer's field for apparently 40 years. And so, what happened was is that the International James Bond Fan Club or whatever, they took it and they fully restored it, and it got sold at like a Christie's auction for several $1,000s, as a matter of fact. I mean, I wouldn't mind having that moon buggy, but then again, what are you going to do with it aside from put it on display? You know what I'm saying? Okay, now, I mean, a lot of times in these Bond films, that American cops come off as so stupid. They're almost like Keystone cops. Well, apparently Guy Hamilton is not a fan of American cars, and one of the great delights he had in shooting the sequence was just having all these cars, just crash and fall apart and everything because he thought that American automobiles really sucked. So this was a directorial decision to have these cars just it's just fall apart and do all these stupid things. It's, it's here again, as a kid, I could not help but love all this stuff. Um, but here again, I kind of agree with Leonard Maltin that this does play a lot more like Republic serials than Ian Fleming. I mean, can you imagine James Bond in a moon buggy or going out in space in a Bond film today? Absolutely not. But then again, just 20 years ago, we had Pierce Brosnan windsurfing. So who knows? There will always be a point where the Bond series gets too silly and ridiculous, and it always has to be scaled back to what Ian Fleming originally had in mind for the character. And that certainly happened after Die Another Day when Casino Royale came out. And just to let everybody know, Casino Royale remains to this day my vote for the best Bond movie, period. Um, I would still say that the first four of Connery's movies are essential, and I would also say the two Timothy Dalton movies are amazing as well. And I like the Roger Moore films for the most part, although I'm not a fan of Man with the Golden Gun, and I'm absolutely not a fan of A View to a Kill. Although I admittedly like that Duran Duran song. So Bond gets rid of that, and they escape in the Ford Mustang. And now we're about to have a very, very an awesome car chase that is almost completely ruined by the final shot, which we'll see here in a minute. But yeah, they escape. They go ahead and escape, and they find themselves back in the city of Las Vegas, and are going to have to deal with some more idiot cops as they're being chased all over the streets of Las Vegas. Like I said, I think this sequence holds up very, very well. This whole thing is getting a little out of hand. Starts stealing machines from Willard White. I mean, uh, there goes that son of a bitch and saboteur. I do. To be perfectly honest, I love this entire sequence. Aside from the ending, which we'll get to, but all the Vegas lights in the background, I think it makes it a very unique car chase, actually. Well, apparently because they paid Connery about $1.25 million, the effects budget had to be cut. But here's the thing: there's still no excuse for. I personally think there's no excuse for how the sequence ends because, as great as all this stuff is, it's when the car does the infamous thing where it gets on its side and it goes through a very small passageway and ends out on the other side. But as most Bond films know, is that they screwed up the shot, and apparently when it came out, that it was on the opposite side. I mean, basically the car was driving on its right side, and it came out driving on its left side. Now, apparently, they actually did shoot it correctly, but the problem was is that in the original footage, when the car came out on its right side, driving on its right wheels, I mean, it's sort of like this. All the people just hanging around, just watching. I mean, in this shot, that's pretty clear. So, and here again, what's spending another $20,000 or $30,000 just to fix the damn shot? But this is one of the most glaring mistakes in Bond history. Maybe the most glaring. I don't know. It may very well be the most glaring mistake in all of James Bond film history. These cops are so fucking stupid. I mean, not that I don't buy a British Secret Service agent out running all these guys, but yeah, I mean, like, you talk about luck. I mean, uh, but yeah, Guy Hamilton apparently had a lot of fun crashing these cars. Did you get him, Larry? Yeah, I think Larry got him. Yeah, I think Larry got him. It's all good. Attaboy, Larry. you know, all we need now is a character that's named Mo, because that will go along with Tiffany Case calling the guy Curly, and then we got Larry here. All we need was a Mo, and it would have been a great Three Stooges reference, which in many ways, I mean, it's on that kind of sensibility. So yeah, here's that famous stunt I was talking about. It goes in there on its right wheels, and they realized they screwed it up, so they put an insert shot of them flipping the car. This is, yeah, it's such a shame that I don't think they ruined the chase necessarily, but yeah, and apparently in the original footage there was supposed to be like people just watching everything, and so they decided, oh no, we can't do that. But then again, we saw that scene earlier of everybody watching, so I don't understand. I don't know. I mean, I mean, I'm sure these guys must have known that, okay, audiences will only pay attention to the cars. They're not going to pay attention to the people on the street. So I don't know. I still think that they should have spent a little bit more money just to fix that because it is very, very glaring. And I think we get a very quick flash of Jill St. John's nipple here. A very, very quick flash. I mean, uh, you know, it was there and now it's gone. Uh, Mr. and Mrs. Jones. Yeah, that's the name on the register, Mr. Leiter. Yeah, I'm not a. This Felix Leiter is rather bland, rather mediocre. I mean, I don't think he's as memorable as the other Felix Leiters in the series, like Jack Lord or um, from Casino Royale. I mean, he's great too. I even like Rick Van Nutter from Thunderball with this guy. But it's weird. Felix Leiter always seems to be like a forgettable character in these movies. I mean, they just merely introduce him as Bond's friend. That's all. It doesn't really showcase any kind of history. Although License to Kill is the exception to that rule because of the fact that Leiter actually gets maimed by a shark. And that's a real revenge story. So if you want a real Bond movie that's all about revenge, that's the movie to watch. Diamonds Are Forever could have been more like License to Kill. I kind of wish it was because it would have been a good supplement to On Her Majesty's Secret Service. So yeah, he jumps on this elevator and he goes up so he can pop up to see Willard White at the top floor. And like I said, this was all based on Howard Hughes and how he was a recluse in one of his hotels and never, didn't really set foot outside of them. I'm not sure if that's actually Connery or if that's his stunt double. To be perfectly honest. But here's Connery for sure. And see, I mean, here again, when I was a kid, I mean, all the super spy stuff, I really found this stuff really, really cool. I forgot to mention earlier when I was talking about Robert Wagner is that he was later in the Austin Powers movies as number 2. So there's another Bond connection for for you. And of course, that first Austin Powers movie spent a lot of time spoofing "You Only Live Twice." Now, originally, Bond was supposed to have a line here when he shoots this gun and he goes up to the side of this building. He actually says, "Q, if this doesn't work, I'm going to kill you." Oh no, he says, "Q, if I fall, I'm going to kill you." Which of course is kind of funny because if he falls, he would be dead. But yeah, this is another one of Q's gadgets, as we see here. I mean, this has got to be like 50 to 60 stories high, though. Anybody with vertigo, they wouldn't be able to get through this. So to do a timestamp real quick, we are at 1 hour and 12 minutes and 20 seconds for anybody who wants to jump in. 1 hour, 12 minutes, and 30 seconds. Go ahead to jump to that time and everything. Mm. So the thing is that I like the majority of Bond films, but I don't like every one of them. I think the few that I would pull out if I was going to buy the Bond 50 set, the ones that I wouldn't bother watching, especially near as often, probably You Only Live Twice, The Man with the Golden Gun, A View to a Kill, And unfortunately, I don't like three of Brosnan's movies as Bond. I don't particularly care for. Well, Tomorrow Never Dies was okay. It wasn't quite up there with Goldeneye, but the movie that I couldn't stand personally was The World Is Not Enough. In fact, I actually think The World Is Not Enough is even worse than Die Another Day. And Die Another Day is routinely cited as the worst, I think, by most people. Although I think that people would also throw in there like Quantum of Solace, which I don't mind. Quantum of Solace. It has a lot of problems. I mean, the editing in that movie is terrible, and of course the writers strike, heavily compromised Quantum of Solace. But the majority of the Bond films I either like and would like to see again. Here again, Diamonds Are Forever is just one of those ones that I've always had a soft spot for. And so finally, after over an hour of screen time, we have Charles Gray again as Blofeld. I mean, I don't mind personally. I don't mind Charles Gray in this role, but I do understand the complaints. I do understand those who think that he's just not a very intimidating presence here. And of course, he has that very stuffy British mannerism attitude. Um, Now, it's funny in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. One of the things about that movie that's always bothered me is the dubbing. I think the dubbing in Majesties is atrocious. And even though the action scenes are quite good, I've never liked the rear projection of particularly the ski sequences. Um, in this film, even though there's ridiculous elements like the voice alternators and of course, we'll see some pretty bad effects later, and all that. I mean, Diamonds has its absolute share of problems. I fully admit that. I think I would probably give this rating of like 6 out of 10. But here again, I mean, because this is the first one I ever saw, I have a soft spot for it. So, I mean, I will probably watch this again sometime in the future. Just to give a shout out to everybody in the chat, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Anybody who wants to share anything on Diamonds Are Forever, please include so in the comments section. This is another Ken Adams set. Oh, Ken Adams was just awesome when he came to, he created those sets in Goldfinger, The Spy Who Loved Me, Moonraker. I mean, his contributions to the Bond films are, just invaluable. I mean, even if you don't care for the acting or the dialogue, at least the set is great to look at. You know, I don't know which one of you to kill. Oh, we appreciate your predicament, Mr. Bond. Now, I mean, when I was a kid, I was like, "Oh, he just had another gun," and it took me later to realize, "Oh no, 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 that's what he used before to scale the side of the building and everything." And Bond actually kicks Blofeld's cat, which I'm honestly surprised. Blofeld probably should have just shot him right then and there. I mean, because in the previous movies, Blofeld is presented as this very intimidating character. We don't even see his face, in a lot of those early Bond films. But here we see him in um, you know, see him completely in full, and it's just a little. It does lose the edge a little bit. I mean, the Spectre threat in this movie is not nearly as um, intimidating as like the like in Thunderball or Goldfinger or From Russia with Love. I mean, it does lack that sinister presence of Spectre and Blofeld from the previous movies. But I tolerate Charles Gray in this role. I don't think he's terrible. I just think he was miscast. Let's put it that way. He was. I think he definitely was miscast. You press L, Mr. Bond. The word lobby begins with L. Yeah, and Bond's like, yeah, whatever. That's as if Blofeld would really let him go. Very smart, but unfortunately, no. Apparently, he's going to get the gas this time. Which is funny because in the previous Bond films, I mean, you always, Blofeld would press a button and then, the floor would open up and, they would go down inside a shark tank or something like that. No, here they actually give him gas. If at first you don't succeed, Mr. Kidd, try again, Mr. Wint. Now, as I was saying earlier during the cremation sequence, where Bond very nearly gets cremated by these guys, you would almost expect Blofeld to chew these guys out and be like, okay, if you screw up again, I'm going to kill you. And that's the thing. It's like, okay, they put him in the trunk. They take him out of the hotel. They could have done anything with his damn body. I mean, they could have put him in a wood chipper. They could have killed him in so many ways. But instead, they drive him out. Through this underground tunnel. They get out in the desert. I mean, I'm not going to say anything about that. Okay, so yeah, drive him out here in the middle of nowhere. It's all dark, and they decide to put him in this construction ring that is going to be that the workers are going to be putting in the ground the next day. Look, I'm sorry, this is just totally absurd. Okay, now the bottle that you just saw there, the bottle was actually an aftershave that one of the guys had. I'm not sure which one had the aftershave, but that's going to basically identify them later when Bond finally gets the opportunity to eliminate them. But it's like, okay, they thought they succeeded when they put him in for cremation. Now, really, none of these workers noticed that Bond's body was in this ring. Really, it pushes things a little too far, I think, in terms of the silliness and the ridiculousness. I find it very hard to believe that not one of these workers noticed that Bond's body was in that thing. I mean, I can buy him still being passed out, but I seriously can't buy him being put in the ground like this. And sure, I mean, if you woke up in that situation, sure, that's scary. But like I said, they could have done anything. They could have they could have easily killed him, no excuses. And that's why it's like I don't understand why Blofeld doesn't really have any direct interaction with them. Because as assassins, it seems like, I mean, I mean, here again, they're like Batman villains, it's just, I mean, will James Bond survive being put in the ground like this? Okay, so here's one of the mild, you know, gay slurs that he throws out here when he says one of us smells like a tart's handkerchief. Oh, I guess that's me. Sorry about that. I mean, it's mild. It's mild. I don't think it's anything to get really upset over, but uh, it's. I love the Simpsons episode where Homer's boss is a supervillain and easily kills James Bond. I got to check that out, actually. That's great. So we are officially at 1 hour, 22 minutes, and 40 seconds. 1 hour, 22, and 40 seconds. For anybody that wants to jump in. Okay, and here again, this is like the opposite of the car flipping on its side sequence, because all that stuff I didn't really buy, and I think it's silly. I got to admit, this line when he comes out of the hatch is pretty good. And I'll give credit to Tom Mankiewicz for this funny line. Oh, thank you very much. I was just out walking my route and I seem to have lost my way. I mean, I'll take that line. I'll take that line over all the other nonsense in this movie. I actually saw somebody post on Twitter like, "Okay, this is ridiculous. He wears a pink tie. Like, big deal, big deal if he's wearing a pink tie. I mean, that's not something to really get all up in arms about. I think." Albert R. Saxby, which apparently is Blofeld's right hand man. Apparently, his name was drawn from Albert R. Broccoli, the producer. This was see the last film I think to have Broccoli and Saltzman was The Man with the Golden Gun, and then Albert R. Broccoli became the sole producer of the series from that point on. And of course, now we got Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli. One mystery to me I will not understand because I don't understand why I mean, have there ever been any Bond conventions? Like, have there ever been like any like Bond cons or anything like that? Because I don't know. It seems like that Eon Productions that they completely ignore the fans when it comes to input or recommendations for the series, which I actually think is kind of bizarre. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of Bond fans out there, and yet, yes, there is an international Bond fan club, but I'm actually surprised there's not like any like conventions devoted solely to the franchise. Yeah, I mean, you would think after 50 years and 25 films now at this point. This I think this house is in California. I forget where they said it was, but it's a pretty cool house. Here again, another Ken Adams set coming up here. Season 8, episode 2, title You Only Move Twice, available on Disney Plus. Thank you, Cliff. I appreciate that. And this was another pretty good sequence where he meets a couple of female assassins called Bambi and Thumper. Um, am I not mistaken that this is the very first black Bond girl in the series? Am I wrong on that? Because I know that Live and Let Die. And actually, look, I love Jane Seymour. Don't get me wrong. I adore Jane Seymour. I really wish they had cast a black girl in that role. I really wish they had. I mean, if they want to go all the way with the black exploitation thing, but I mean, I guess the producers were nervous about Bond being in bed with a black woman. Which look, I mean, granted, it's the early '70s, but I still think that it would have been I still think that would have been pretty groundbreaking. But Thumper is pretty hot. I mean, she's pretty hot in this movie. Now, I don't know why they cut away when she knees him in the nuts. I mean, did they do that just to avoid an R rating? I mean, I mean, there's a lot of weird, strange things in this movie, and that's certainly one of them. Like, I just don't understand. Like, why couldn't they have just gone all the way with it? Now, I think Bambi, the actress playing Bambi, was a gymnast, as you can certainly see here. Damn. And everything that the actress playing Thumper, everything that she does is basically everything that she contributed to this role. And she's interviewed on the documentary, but not the actress who plays Bambi. I remember watching this on the television version because they had to cut out several things, but I only saw Bambi. I never saw Thumper when they were, going up to him in slow motion and everything. And another swimming pool. What is up with this movie and swimming pools? I mean, seriously. Although, I mean, it's funny because this is actually one of the few moments where Connery looks like he's genuinely having fun with a pink tie on, of course. And here comes Felix and the cavalry to the rescue. As and of course, this is supposed to be Willard White's summer house, where apparently Blofeld has been keeping him prisoner all this time. Still haven't found out where he is. No. And so we're about to meet Willard White here, who's played by Jimmy Dean, the Sausage King, and he was a delight to listen to on the Inside Diamonds Are Forever documentary. A real delight, and you know, here again, I actually enjoy his performance here. I really do. I see you've met my friends Bambi and Thumper. In actuality, I mean, Jimmy Dean said that on the documentary that the one question he gets asked the most is um, uh, working with Bambi and Thumper. But the truth is, he never shot with them. That whole sequence was shot at another point in time, and so when they got to this point, Jimmy Dean had shared no scenes with the actresses that played Bambi and Thumper, and yet the number one question that he was always asked was, "What do we like to hang around them and everything?" Bert Saxby is about to get his right here. I here again, some of these lines are really, really silly, and yet I can't help but laugh at this line that he says right here, where oh, that's Bert Saxby, yeah. Connery's reaction. Apparently, Connery, when he was working with Connery, is that he loved working with him and said that Connery always amusingly called him the noisy American. So, okay, now here we get to probably the dumbest moment in the whole movie. This is, well, maybe it's a tie between this or when Tiffany Case actually falls into the drink later on, but okay, so the idea is that she sees somebody with Blofeld's cat, and she feels the need to pursue them, but it looks like a woman that's carrying Blofeld's cat. I mean, this whole sequence right here just makes no sense to me. It would have been a lot easier if, like, maybe she had gotten a message saying, "Oh, Bond's waiting for you out front," or something easier like that, and they would have tricked her. But it's like, really, she's going to follow this woman with a cat? I mean, we don't even know. I mean, how does she know if that's Blofeld's cat or not? I mean, come on. I mean, it just seems like this is really silly. And then, of course, she's tricked. She's thrown into the cab. And what do you know? We have Blofeld in drag. This is something that's the movie has gotten a lot of flack for. Was just this one bit, which, yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I can't defend that in any way. I'm sorry. Uh, I mean, Tom Mankiewicz, I think, was probably just having fun and thought, they could play around with this idea, but we didn't need to see Blofeld in drag. And like I said, here again, going back to what I was saying about how Blofeld was such an intimidating presence in those earlier films, you look at this and you'd be like, what? Blofeld is in drag just to trick the Bond girl in the car? No, no, no. That's too stupid. Even for this movie, that's too stupid. What the hell has happened to me and what can we do about it? I like Jimmy Dean. I don't mind him in this movie. He appears at the very, very end. You know, I don't know if any of you are fans of Jimmy Dean's sausage. I don't think I've had Jimmy Dean's sausage in years. And when he was interviewed on the documentary, he just said, "Thank you, thank God for the sausage business. Thank God." Now, this actor to the right of, or no, to the left of Jimmy Dean, that actor had appeared in You Only Live Twice, and then he later appeared as the submarine commander in The Spy Who Loved Me when he was insisting on Barbara Bach as Agent Triple X to use the shower in his personal quarters. You know, so this is what Blofeld utilized the diamonds for this satellite that will destroy different areas around the planet, unless, of course, he gets his demands or whatever, another world domination scheme, basically. But I got to confess, even though I don't care for You Only Live Twice, this ending is very You Only Live Twice. When we go out to the oil rig and everything. I mean, a lot of these movies with Spectre seem to end with like the government forces coming with Bond to get finally nail the bad guy, nail the villain, essentially. And like I said, there's some awful effects in the last 30 minutes of the movie here. There are some admittedly awful effects, and we are very, very close to the 1 hour and 35-minute mark. So we're basically about to enter the third act here, as they're finally made aware of this satellite and everything. North Dakota. But I mean, look, I mean, at least we're out of Vegas at this point. So, Blofeld and drag when he kidnaps Tiffany Case. That was the very last time we'll be in Vegas now. Mm. Well, I don't want to say I've ran out of things to say, but here again, anybody in the chat, I mean, now's your chance. Any more comments you want to give on Diamonds Forever? I'd love to hear, any of your opinions overall on what you think of this film and its placement in the series. Yeah, see, some of these effects are really, really cheap. I mean, for a Bond film at this time, they are rather cheap. I mean, look at that. I mean, now the when they got Connery back, apparently they gave him a salary of 1.25 million. But United Artists actually sweetened the deal when they said, "Okay, we'll produce any two films you want, and you'll also get a percentage of the profits from this movie." So Connery kept the profits, but he gave his entire 1.25 million to a Scottish acting trust, which he had founded. So his entire salary he donated to that. See, look at this right here. I mean, yeah, I mean these effects are pretty embarrassing. They're pretty cheap, pretty embarrassing. And I mean that's the thing about Diamonds Are Forever. In the third act, it just really kind of falls apart. I mean, there's a lot of fun stuff in this movie, but by the last third, it just tends to fall apart, and it's almost made up of spare parts that we've seen before and after. But yeah, in this final stretch, they're basically trying to figure out where Blofeld is hiding, so they can stop him from destroying these different things. But But Sean Connery, he was pretty adamant that after this movie, he was done. I mean, he told his later on, he told his wife, "Never again, never again will I play James Bond." But of course, in 1983, he would do the unofficial Bond movie, Never Say Never Again, because of Kevin McClory and the rights that he owned to Thunderball. I still think Diamonds Are Forever is much, much better than Never Say Never Again. Although to be fair, also, I mean, Never Say Never Again. I mean, the only things I like about that movie are Barbara Carrere as Fatima Blush, but it also has probably one of the funniest lines I ever heard in any of these movies, which is when Fatima Blush basically throws him a pen and a piece of paper saying, "Okay, before I kill you, Mr. Bond, you need to write down that I was the greatest lay that you've ever had in your life." And Bond, of course, kind of hesitates, and he just says, "Well, you know what? There was this one girl in Philadelphia." I mean, credit where credit is due. And and Never Say Never Again, that was written by Lorenzo Semple Jr., who also wrote the first two Batman episodes, and then later wrote Flash Gordon. So you want to talk about camp? There you go. But look, Diamonds Are Forever. It does fall apart in this third act. It does fall apart, and here again, it relies on basically stuff we've already seen before in the previous Connery movies. There's really not a lot here aside from Jill St. John in a bikini. I will say that the only memorable thing about this third act is Jill St. John in a bikini, but that's it. That's it. Mm. And we just reached the 1 hour and 40 mark, so we have approximately 20 minutes left here. Blofeld just ordered his men to hold their fire as this yeah this ball was just basically dropped in the ocean. Mm. Hey, Dying Breed, how you doing tonight? Glad you can come. I mean, we're at the 1 hour 41 minute mark. If you want to shoot to the to that timestamp, but I mean, if you have anything to say about Diamonds Are Forever, please go ahead and put it in the chat right now. But because I pretty much run out of things to say at this point. I mean, like I said, this third act is just not very memorable at all. I mean, like I said, except for Jill St. John in the bikini, and we're about to see her in a minute here. Actually, you can see her right there. Yeah, right there on the right side of the screen. Your pitiful little island hasn't even been threatened. He's, of course, referring to the United Kingdom. Of course, it's kind of funny that Charles Gray is saying that because he's actually British, but what are you going to do? Like I said, I like Charles Gray. I just think he was miscast. I just think he was very miscast in this role. I do so hate martial music. I mean, I'm trying to think of another actor that could pull this off. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Patrick Macnee or somebody. I mean, somebody that, well, actually, he's British too. Never mind. I mean, they might as well have just brought Kojak back. In all honesty. Oh, there's another Superman connection. Kojak was in the first Superman movie, or he was. According to the script, he was supposed to appear in a cameo and see Superman fly over the sun and say, "Hey, who loves you, baby?" I mean, like I said, there's a lot of weird connections to the Superman films. I mean, sharing the same writer. And in fact, we're about to have a direct reference here in a minute where Tiffany Case actually, after she puts something over her bikini, she goes up to Blofeld and says, "Hey, is Superman giving you any trouble?" So there's a lot of weird connections to Superman. And here again, I thought Valerie Perrine was in this movie, but according to her, she is absolutely not. So that would have made another Superman connection. I just wish I would have confirmed for sure if Elvira was in this. I mean, according to some sources, she is in this movie, but it's a little confusing as to whether she appeared as a dancer or a showgirl, or whether she was really one of Shady Tree's acorns. Um, I wasn't able to get a 100% confirmation on that, but she was in Vegas at the time this was being shot. And like I said, technically her film debut was in the Fellini film Roma. See, that's the weird thing. Valerie Perrine and Cassandra Elvira Peterson, they were both pretty much in Vegas at this time. And the next year, they would both make their official debuts. Valerie Perrine in Slaughterhouse 5, which, like I said, I'll do a commentary on in a couple months, and Elvira in Fellini's Roma. Damn. Is Superman giving you any trouble? I mean, look, I'm not going to lie that Jill St. John is smoking hot in that damn bikini, but why do they have to make her character such a ditz? I mean, it's just unbelievable. I sure as hell can't declare her as my worst choice for a Bond girl, but I mean, I would take Jill St. John over Tanya Roberts or what's her name in The Man with the Golden Gun any day of the week. Britt Eklund. Yeah, Britt Eklund. Yeah. Okay, now I noticed this on the recent viewing, but there's all these little signs that you can see all around the set, like "walk, don't run." Well, it's really glad that Blofeld is looking out for his workers in terms of safety. You know, no smoking, don't walk, don't run. I mean, you'll see them all over this Ken Adams set. And these weird outfits. I mean, that's the thing. It becomes literally an Austin Powers movie at this point. I mean, it's not that much different. It's not that much different. She just pushes the guy like, I mean, get out of my way. I got to tell James Bond something, damn it. So you got to switch the tape again. And so, yeah, Felix Leiter and Jimmy Dean, they're up in a helicopter here about to swarm in to save the day. When I saw the television version of this, I think that they pretty much kept everything intact. Although I do think that the Lana Wood sequence was kind of because she's supposed to be pretty much naked when she's thrown out of the pool, thrown into that swimming pool. I think they added like a black bra to her to uh, basically not showcase her as completely naked. I mean, to modify it for television audiences. The balloon was a signal. Stupid fools must think Mr. Bond has accomplished his mission. Oh yeah. Yeah, I might as well for the rest of the commentary be like that one guy and be like, 13 minutes and counting. Of course, they did that in Austin Powers later, which was really, really funny. 007 are hit or miss with people. I enjoy a good spy action movie myself. Yeah. I mean, here again, this is not very well regarded in the Bond community, I guess you could say. And here again, the complaints, I understand the complaints completely. Bond is out of shape. There's a lot of campy stuff. Some of the effects are horrible. And yet I still find it for the most part rather fun. I mean, and look, I mean, even though her character is stupid, I mean, Jill St. John goes a long way in that bikini. Let's just be honest here. She goes a long way in that bikini. uh, we're showing a bit more cheek than usual, I see. Now, for you Generation Xers who don't know what that is, that's called a cassette tape. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people that still remember cassette tapes, even if they were born after the turn of the century. But it's still very much obsolete technology at this point. I mean, there's a lot more people with phonograph records than there are with cassette tapes now. So I'm sure a lot of young kids would watch this movie and be like, "What the hell is that?" I mean, it's and so yeah, they start shooting the helicopters. The helicopters zoom in, swarm them, and start killing all of them. I mean, it's a very standard Spectre climax for one of these James Bond films of the era. Yeah. Oh, that was a horrible effect right there. I don't know what that was all about. Like I said, the effects in this movie are very, very tacky, very, very cheap. Because, like I said, Connery basically, he almost took up the whole budget, pretty much, when they paid him. But I'll probably watch No Time to Die in a couple weeks or so. I mean, I know I can. I know I can watch it streaming at this point, but like I said, that's still the only Bond film I have not seen yet, and it's been rather polarizing in terms of Bond fans and non-Bond fans, from what I understand. I mean, very, very polarizing reception to No Time to Die. A lot of these equipment on the set also reminds me of the machines in Doctor No as well. I mean, I wonder if they're leftovers. Prepare my Bathos sub immediately. Oh, really? A Bathos sub? I mean, is that what they call it? Yeah, this climax really drags. It just really drags. But at any rate, all right. 9 minutes and counting till the end of the movie. I mean, he's in this Bathos sub. I mean, yeah, it really does descend into the absurd by the end of the movie. It really does. Yeah, admittedly, I really do miss the Blofeld where we just don't see his face. We just see him stroking his cat. I really miss that kind of Blofeld, or that version of Blofeld, rather. Bathos sub to Crane. Lower away. Wake up, man. Lower away. Yeah, come on, Bond. but that's weird. I mean, we don't see Blofeld again until Spectre. Oh no, well, technically he's in Never Say Never Again, but here again, I mean, I'd be a hard stretch to count that one. Tiffany Case, I mean, her character really goes into the drink, literally and figuratively at this point. Ugh, okay. 7 minutes and counting. Okay, so here's the other bit that I was talking about, which is so embarrassing and stupid. Like, okay, like I said, it's very, very hard to defend Tiffany Case, and even though I mean, I love redheads. I've always loved redheads. I mean, oh no, seriously, I mean, Anne Margaret, Molly Ringwald, um, you name it. I mean, I adore redheads, and Jill St. John is um that was probably not Connery. That was probably his stunt diver. But so yeah, finally the whole thing explodes and the movie ends. Well, about to end. Uh, I watched all the Bond films until Brosnan showed up. Even though four actors had played the role by that point, I couldn't wrap my mind around a new guy coming in to play the part, so I quit watching. Yeah. Well, you know what? I mean, GoldenEye was the very first Bond film I saw in theaters, and my mother was like a hardcore Pierce Brosnan fan, and even though she complained about the Bond series became too violent at that point, License to Kill, but man, I really wish Timothy Dalton had done a third movie, or I mean, Timothy Dalton, I wish he had done like 6 or 7 movies. And so, I mean, as typical of these Bond movies, the trope of well, we still have these leftover assassins to take care of. So, Mr. Witt and Mr. Kidd. But you know what? I can't help but question, like, with some of these guys. Like, are they just being paid by somebody to do this? Because I mean, seriously, I mean, if their boss was Blofeld and Blofeld is now dead, what what would they gain by coming on board the ship and killing Bond? I mean, or are they just trying to make up for the mistakes they made earlier? I don't know. I mean, it doesn't really make any sense to me. But hey, it's nice to see Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd again. Like I said, Bruce Glover was the father is the father of Crispin Glover. I can see Crispin in him, to be perfectly honest. Prime rib au jus, salad utopia. This is Tom Mankiewicz. This is all Mankiewicz dialogue. I mean, and for dessert, the piece de la resistance, la bombe surprise. This will just take a moment, and we will leave you in peace. Yeah. 4 minutes and counting. I mean, here again, they're not particularly intimidating henchmen. I just find them a fun. I love the banter between the two of them. I actually kind of wish there was more banter. A happy selection, if I may say. Okay, so there's the payoff to the aftershave from before, that little bottle that came out one of their pockets and everything. Now, what the clarity is referring to a particular type of wine here. Woods and Rothschild is a claret, and I've smelled that aftershave before. So, on that note, Mr. Kidd decides to go in for the kill. He lights these, I mean, I guess shish kebab, I guess, on fire, and basically going to kill Bond here. And while Tiffany Case does really nothing, and like, oh man, get on fire. That was a stunt man, obviously. Now, I mean, if you look on Mr. Wint's face here, I mean, yeah, I think it reads like, "Damn you! There goes my dick." Now I'm not gonna not now I'm not gonna have Mr. Kid, make sweet love to me tonight because of you. So, and then we have this final gag where instead of Mr. Kid's dick in his ass, he's going to get the bomb, and he's just basically thrown off the side of the ship, and then boom! And of course, the final classic line from Bond. Well, he certainly left with his tail between his legs. And on that note, that pretty much cues the end credits for Diamonds Are Forever. Here again, not a great Bond movie by any stretch. It's got many, many issues, many, many problems, but I still have a soft spot for it. I mean, I'll probably watch it again after this. After this commentary, I probably will. Producers gratefully acknowledge the help of the Ford Motor Company, Aston Martin, Honda Motor, David Morris Jewelers, also all these hotels. The Riviera, the Sands, the Dunes, the Landmark, the International, the Tropicana, the Mint, Circus, all in the city of Las Vegas. And look, I mean, they got the American audience back. I mean, that's one thing you got to give this movie credit for. It got the American audience back into James Bond. And we get a reprise of Shirley Bassey's Diamonds Are Forever song, of course. 20 seconds and counting. That's the end of Diamonds Are Forever, but James Bond will indeed return in Live and Let Die. And I can almost guarantee I will be doing Live and Let Die in 2 years' time. Do a 50th anniversary commentary for that. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I mean, so at any rate, I mean, yeah, thank you so much, Cliff. Fun commentary. Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you, everybody in the chat once again. Dying Breed, Elaine Sani, Maurice, Jinx Hart, Joe Bob Charheel. Yeah, well, I'm glad you were all able to make it out tonight. So, in closing, I will just reiterate that the first few commentaries I will do next year are Cliff Robertson's J.W. Coop, Bill Norton's Cisco Pike, Bob Fosse's Cabaret, Freddie Francis' Tales from the Crypt, Francis Ford Coppola's The Godfather, George Roy Hill's Slaughterhouse-Five, and finally John Waters' Pink Flamingos. So all those commentaries will be coming in the first 3 months of 2022. Until then, I want to wish you all a happy new year. Please stay safe and please drink responsibly. And I will see you again probably next weekend. I don't know for sure, but I'll be making an announcement pretty soon for my next commentary. But at any rate, Happy New Year to you all. Thank you for joining me for the Diamonds Are Forever commentary. And you all have a